Everyone, welcome back. We're diving into something pretty interesting today, especially for those of you running hotels and restaurants, always striving for that top-notch guest experience.
Right, and we all know those little details can make a huge difference.
Exactly. So we're going to tap into the most valuable resource you have, the voice of your guests.
Absolutely, and not just like general feedback, but we're going super specific here.
Yeah, so we're looking at what guests actually said about the service they received. And get this, all these comments mention one hospitality professional by name.
It's pretty unique, right? We're talking about Maurice, a real expert in food and beverage.
Yeah, and he's worked in a few different places, so we get a broad perspective.
Exactly. He's been at Lakeside Restaurant in Switzerland, then Le Figuier de Saint-Esprit in France.
And more recently at Le Mondia, also in France.
And these comments, they span from like late 2015 to mid-2017.
So we're not just reading compliments here, we're trying to understand what made Maurice so successful.
Yeah, what did he do that really resonated with the guests? What qualities stood out?
And most importantly, what can other owners and managers learn from this?
How can they apply those insights to improve their own places?
All right, so let's start with Lakeside in Switzerland
Right off the bat, a lot of the reviews mention how welcoming the atmosphere is.
and how attentive the service is, with Maurice being specifically mentioned.
Yeah, that first impression, the welcome, seems to be a big deal.
Totally. One guest even used the words sympathique and prévenant to describe Maurice.
Which basically means friendly and thoughtful in French.
And they were really impressed because Maurice found them a nice table with a view of the lake.
Even though they hadn't even made a reservation.
So it's like that extra effort right away made them feel valued.
And that feeling can set the tone for the entire meal.
Another guest said Maurice was incredibly kind, even though, again, they hadn't booked.
It's going the extra mile when guests might be a little inconvenienced.
Yeah, it creates that goodwill right from the start.
And the reviews about the overall service under Maurice's direction were glowing.
Using words like impeccable and magnifique.
And it's not just vague praise either. They mention specific things.
One review thanks Mr. Maurice and his team for being professional, smiling, and attentive.
That combination seems to be key. Competence, positivity, and genuine attentiveness.
Now think about that for a second. As owners, how can you cultivate that in your own staff?
It might mean training that focuses on anticipating guest needs.
Yeah, and giving your staff the power to find creative solutions, just like Maurice did with the table.
Absolutely, and here's where it gets really interesting.
There's one review with a super simple title, thanks to Maurice.
Just that, nothing else.
I mean, that speaks volumes, right?
It shows how much of a personal connection he made with that guest.
They went on to say they had an excellent evening, specifically because of the attentive service.
And I highly recommend the restaurant.
That's the kind of recognition every place wants.
Yeah, it means Maurice wasn't just some random staff member.
He was a big part of why they had such a positive experience.
There's another review that says, Maurice's warm welcome and the attention given during the meal by him and the service staff made this meal a memorable experience.
So it's not just one interaction, it's the consistency throughout the meal.
Exactly, that ongoing care.
Okay, now this next review, it gives us a glimpse into service recovery.
What happens when things, don't go perfectly?
Yeah, so the guest mentions that their head waiter, Maurice, was super friendly and professional.
But they also said that the waitresses weren't really keeping up.
But then they finish by saying, luckily, Maurice made up for all the mistakes.
So even when there are hiccups in the operation, a strong service leader can really turn things around.
For owners, this means training your staff well is important, but
also empowering your senior team members to take charge, to solve problems.
think about it. Losing a guest is much more costly than investing in training.
And that's what allows you to handle these tough situations smoothly.
Okay, last one from Lakeside. We have a direct recommendation for future guests.
They say, if you go to taste the excellent Japanese specialties prepared in front of you, don't hesitate to ask for Maurice to serve you and to bring good cheer during your evening.
And they describe him as an excellent professional, full of humor and very attentive.
So his personality, his positive energy, that was a big part of the experience too.
So looking back at all the Lakeside reviews,
We see some clear takeaways for owners.
a warm and proactive welcome is huge.
Attentive service, where guests feel like they're being looked after.
And having strong leaders who can fix problems and lift up the whole team.
Now let's shift gears to Le Figuier de Saint-Esprit in France.
The feedback here is a bit different, maybe because it's a more upscale place.
Right, but we still see that impact.
One review just says, the service was top P, a special thanks to Maurice.
Short and sweet, but it gets the point across.
Super high level of satisfaction.
But another review from Le Figuier gives us a bit more detail.
They mention Maurice's passion and knowledge.
Yeah, they say, the maître d'hôtel Maurice was able to explain to us with passion and enthusiasm all the chef's dishes, as well as the origin of all the products ranging from the olive oil to the fisherman to the butter from Brittany.
So it's like, he's not just reading off a menu.
He's telling a story, bringing the dishes to life.
Sharing where the ingredients come from, maybe even the chef's inspiration.
It transforms the whole experience.
Guests connect with the food on a deeper level.
So owners, how can you encourage your staff to do this? To develop that knowledge and share it with passion.
It adds so much value to the meal.
All right, let's move on to Mon Petit Resto.
Another place where guests experienced Maurice's service.
And the reviews here reinforce those key themes.
One says, a big bravo and thank you for the excellent service. The gentleman was very attentive, friendly, and precise.
Again, attentive, friendly, precise. Those are crucial elements no matter what kind of restaurant you have.
And another guest mentions, a warm welcome with attentive service for us.
Those fundamental things, making guests feel welcome and cared for, they're universal.
Maurice seems to have had a knack for creating that feeling in all sorts of environments.
Okay, finally, let's dive into Le Mondier in Mougins.
This is where we see the most reviews that mention Maurice.
So it seems like he had a long-lasting positive impact here.
His welcome is described as very good, and he's called adorable and perfect.
These are not just, throwaway compliments.
They show a consistent pattern of positive interactions.
And the praise goes on, perfect service. Thank you to our host, Maurice.
Another one highlights his very high-quality service.
His attentiveness and his listening skills, and again, super friendly and professional.
That blend of efficiency and warmth seems to be his signature.
We see lots of thank yous, like thanks also to Maurice for his welcome.
One guest even thanks Maurice for the perfection with which he accompanied us during our meal.
It's like he orchestrated a seamless, enjoyable experience.
This one really stands out. Maurice, who served us, was extremely helpful and made us feel very special.
Making guests feel valued like individuals, that creates loyalty.
So owners, think about your training, your protocols. How can you encourage that level of personalization?
Maybe it's remembering guest preferences, making tailored recommendations.
We're just having genuine conversations.
Another review talks about a larger group. We ate with 8 adults and were served by Maurice, who was perfect in both service, welcome, and his advice on menu choices.
So he's able to handle both small and large parties with the same level of care.
And we see a lot of praise for Maurice's service, specifically.
One guest calls it very much appreciated.
Another one highlights the welcome as well as the impeccable service of Maurice and all the staff.
So it seems like his high standards might have rubbed off on the whole team.
It's about setting a good example, creating a positive culture.
And it's not always about, doing something extraordinary.
Someone mentions a warm welcome, efficient and discreet service. Thank you to Maurice.
That balance, attentive but not intrusive, that's tricky.
But so important.
We even have a repeat customer who remembers his attentive welcome on our last visit.
Showing that positive impact lasts beyond just one visit.
Another one simply says, the service was perfect, thanks to Maurice.
Those repeat visits, they build relationships.
There's more. Thanks for his advice and his warm welcome.
Very attentive to his customers.
Impeccable service by Maurice.
It's all about that commitment to guest satisfaction.
This one is great. A special note to Maurice, who was very attentive to us.
And get this, a customer who's been going to Le Mondier for over 30 years.
Wow, a long time.
They say, this time we were served by Maurice. Very smiling, attentive, and efficient. Thank you again.
Even after all those years, they're still impressed.
That's maintaining those high standards.
Another one mentions Maurice and Serge being present but discreet.
That balance, again, being available but also giving guests space.
Okay, this review really sums it up. Our waiter, Maurice, was a special find in the world of restaurant staff. Not only was he extremely well-informed, knew each of the dishes and their flavors and helped in our choices, but he was a delight to talk to and perfectly attentive to our needs.
The whole package.
Knowledge, helpfulness, attentiveness, and a great personality.
Someone else mentions how Maurice took time out to explain each course of the tasting menu.
And describe the wines.
And finally, a simple one. Maurice was so polite and friendly.
It all comes back to those basic human qualities.
So looking at all this feedback, some major themes pop out.
That personalized welcome, making guests feel valued right away, that's huge.
Think about your own staff. Are they trained to do that?
Being attentive but not intrusive, that's another key takeaway.
And having a team that really knows the product, that can talk about it with enthusiasm.
How are you investing in your team's knowledge?
And personality matters. Being friendly, approachable, bringing that energy.
It creates a better atmosphere for everyone.
We saw Maurice going above and beyond, accommodating requests, solving problems.
That proactive approach, it makes a difference.
These are not just random comments. They show what drives guest satisfaction.
And that translates to repeat business, positive word of mouth, a great reputation.
It's a reminder that the human element is what makes hospitality special.
So for all you hotel and restaurant owners out there,
Pay attention to these real-world examples.
the dedication to creating positive experiences like Maurice did.
It has a huge impact on your success.
Here's a question for you to think about.
What can you do today to create more of those Maurice moments in your own place?
Look at your own guest feedback, see the patterns.
Empower your team to create those warm, attentive interactions.
Those are the things that make guests truly happy.
Hospitality is a journey. You're always learning and adapting.
By listening to your guests, you gain valuable insights.
And you can keep improving, building loyalty, and achieving long-term success.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.